to all of you for coming out this evening to hear a little bit more about the Appalachian Trail and the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. It's great to see you all here. And we're just going to start with a quick survey. So how many here have day hiked in the Appalachian Trail? All right, everybody. Awesome. Several night backpack? Okay. How about a longer section hike? Great. Any through hikers in the room? Excellent. Okay, so all of you have an understanding and a familiarity with the AT at one level or another. What we're going to do here this evening is a little bit behind the scenes of what it takes to sustain and manage and protect the Appalachian Trail from one day to the next. So we walk in the woods. It's a wonderful experience, sometimes maybe taken for granted. Part of what we're going to kind of peel back the layers on here is help you understand and potentially learn some new things about AT management. So just a bit on who we are. So the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, we were founded in 1925. This is our 100th anniversary, our centennial year. Wow. Yes, pretty cool. Yeah. To survive and endure as a nonprofit for 100 years, even by itself, we consider to be an accomplishment. And being the caretakers of the Appalachian Trail all that time, for us is an important milestone in our work. So just a little bit here about what we do. We manage and protect the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. We're the only nonprofit devoted exclusively to the entirety of the trail. As Adair mentioned, we have multiple hundreds of partners really along the length of the AT, and they all have an important role in wherever they happen to be located. We're the organization that basically brings the whole network and enterprise together. We endeavor to keep its vast natural and scenic beauty healthy, resilient, and connected so that everyone can experience its transformative power for generations to come. And together with our supporters, partners, and thousands of volunteers, our new tagline, we keep the trail alive. So that's a little bit who we are. Here's our vision. You all can just take a quick read on that, vision and mission. And our mission really hasn't changed since our inception. But to understand where we are currently in time, but also what it looks like for the future, is to explore a little bit where we came from. Does anybody know who this individual is?
Avery.
All right, yeah, good knowledgeable group. So this is Benton Mackay, pronounced Mackay, looks like McKay, but it's pronounced Mackay. Forester, philosopher, dreamer is how he's been described. And this is in the turn of the 19th to 20th century when Benton was sort of one of these big thinkers, like looking at this change in societal values, change in lifestyles from a more agrarian society to a more urbanized society, and industrialization was really taking off in the early period of the 20th century. And this concerned him. He was concerned that society was going to lose its sort of innate connection to nature. So one way that he developed the concept of how to keep people connected to nature was by a trail that would ride the ridge crests of the Appalachians across their length from Georgia to Maine. Allegedly, Benton had his vision. Does anybody know where? HEMCers in the room? Go ahead. Yes, so this may not be a photo on Stratton Mountain, but it's symbolic of his sort of philosophical musings about the value of long trails. So he was inspired by the long trail in Vermont, and legend has it that he had the idea of the Appalachian Trail while on Stratton Mountain, about maybe 100 trail miles from here, something like that, 80, something like that. Anybody been up on Stratton? Yeah, a bunch of them. So there's the tower up there. So at this time, when Benton was on, it was a cleared summit, right? Because of logging areas and all. Now you can take the tower and get the view, maybe that Benton Mackay had at his time. So one of the things that for those that can go to the Rauner Library anytime till December morning, right? Yeah, or this evening, ideally, you'll see some of Benton's early work, including some of his hand-drawn maps of the idea of where the AT would lie on the land. Well, we mentioned forester, philosopher, dreamer. What's missing in that description? Doers, right? Like somebody had to build the thing. Somebody had to lead the charge to put the trail on the ground. Some of you may recognize this gentleman on the right, Myron Avery is his name. He's from Maine. And this is a rare photo with the two of these gentlemen together because they actually had an impasse. Benton had the original idea for the trail. He was a bit of a purist. He wanted the trail to be this remote kind of wilderness experience. Myron's approach was, let's get it done. Let's get it on the ground. Let's, make this connection from one end to the other. So they kind of had a parting of ways. And in terms of actually constructing the trail, Myron kind of took over. This is Myron and his crew on the summit of Katahdin. This was the first sign posted on Katahdin, recognizing the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail. It's very symbolic at that time. It's also very characteristic to see a photo of Myron Avery with his measuring wheel, because he walked the entire trail in sections, measuring as he went. So that's really the origin. So Benton wrote this article in 1921 in a journal for architects about it was a project in regional planning around the idea of an Appalachian Trail. 1921. 4 years later, a conference was held in the DC area to really explore, is this a viable thing? Could this actually happen? Was it attainable? Brought in trail organizations from around the Northeast and elsewhere to explore this. And the consensus of that conference was, it's possible. Here's what we would need to do that. Our organization arose out of that conference. They said, well, somebody's got to be the overseer of this to make it happen. And that was our name for the first 80 years of 80 years of our existence was the Appalachian Trail Conference. And in 2005, as noted here, we changed our name to Conservancy to better identify our broadening mission as a conservation organization. A few other milestones. So 1925, yes, it's possible, let's build it. By 1937, just 12 years later, there was a continuous trail from Georgia to Maine on the ground. Remarkable, 12 years, 2,800 miles. What happened right after 1937 for those that know Northeast history? A hurricane in 1938 hit the Appalachian Trail hard, almost as hard as Helene did in the South. So that's sort of like there was a celebratory moment, and it was pretty quickly squashed, at least here in the Northeast. The trail kind of fell into disrepair during World War II, other national priorities, until 1948. Does anybody know what happened in 1948 relative to the trail's history? It's not on here. Earl Schaefer, the very first person to hike the entirety of the Appalachian Trail in one season, known as a through hike. Prior to that, it was considered to be physically impossible, beyond human capability to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. And Earl silenced those naysayers. He was fresh out of World War II, needed to kind of walk off the war, and that's the route he took, was the route of the Appalachian Trail. So that was, brought the trail back into public awareness and consciousness. About 20 years later, what happened was, while we had a trail on the ground, there were over 800 miles of the trail that were not formally protected. It was informal agreements, handshakes, roadwalks, etc. And the then members of the Conservancy, then conference, and the trail clubs got together and said, this is not sustainable. Keep having to move the trail. It's very vulnerable. And it was realized at the time that really the only entity that had the capability and the resources to conserve the land around the Appalachian Trail across 14 states and 2,000 miles was the federal government. The same. One nonprofit couldn't do that. So the Appalachian Trail Conservancy lobbied for the passage of the National Trails Act in 1968. And the Appalachian Trail was designated, along with the Pacific Crest Trail, the nation's first national scenic trails. It's a little bit of jargon, but what does that mean? Well, what that means over time is that resources can be applied to this land conservation effort. And it took 10 years later to get an amendment to the Act to get funding authorized to do that. And that was again, through advocacy of trail organizations. The original $90 million was authorized, and it was believed at the time that it would take from 3 to 5 years to close the deals. Anyway, 25 years later, it was more likely to happen. But the remarkable thing, let me see if it's next slide here. Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. So the Trails Act was 1978. 2005, we changed our name. Here from 2014 was when the last major stretch of trail was formally protected. So what is that? 22, over 30 years to get to that point. In 2015, we launched what we call our Landscape Partnership Program. We'll look at that in a little more detail here in a minute. And then this year, we're celebrating our centennial. So you have $90 million, you have 800 miles of the trail that are not formally protected. How do you accomplish this task? Like any monumental task, how do you do it? One step at a time, right? So this map is showing right here in Hanover the various parcels that were required to protect the land around the Appalachian Trail. Anybody want to take a guess? So we have the trail passing through national forests and national parks, these large green areas on the map, but a lot of areas in between where it wasn't on public land. Anybody want to take a guess on the number of individual real estate transactions we had?
4,000.
Just not far off, actually. It was 3,400 individual real estate transactions, one negotiation at a time. You can imagine that. So that's why it took all those years to do that. Each one of these was a parcel. So whoever that landowner was approached and said, we'd like to conserve this land, et cetera. There's a lot of different methods used for doing that, from fee to easement to right of ways. We have a whole patchwork, but we did it, right? Like 99%. People often ask, where's the last 1%? It's a few hundred yards there, a couple hundred feet there, and they're some of the most intractable ones for various reasons. So for all purposes, the trail lies on 100% protected land base.
Was eminent domain used?
Eminent domain was used in a few rare cases, and there's 3 ways with eminent domain. One is you have a willing seller, but you can't agree on a price. The federal government can't pay above or appraised value. It's just the way it is legislated. So you can't pay higher than the appraised value. A landowner wanted more money. Federal government said, we want it. You want to sell the land, we want to buy it. Can't agree on a price, so we're going to take the land through condemnation. The other one is in a lot of these tracts with complicated prior land ownership, some of it going back to the colonies, right? Like getting a clean title was one value of condemnation or eminent domain is it clears all that history. So that was used a few times just so that the parcel could be awarded. So that was primarily the 2 reasons that it was used. Okay. Now, do you think this is going to work?
You should be able to just click on it and have it pop up for everyone.
Okay. So, thank you, Rana. Awesome. So, what we want to do here is give you a little bit of insight into what we call favorable unintended consequence. Like there's a lot of things we do with good intentions, but we don't always realize in the long run what the trade-offs might have been. Well, one advantage to conserving this relatively narrow strip of land is we formed the longest continuous conservation corridor in the eastern United States. There's no other continuous landmass that runs the length that's the same as the Appalachian Trail does. So what that has allowed us to do over time, and this is why this discussion here today, Conservancy is so apt in our outing this afternoon and looking at some of the parcels that the Hanover Conservancy has brought into conservation. As you can see over time, so the Park Service acquired lands are kind of these lighter tan ones. But look at all the other green that's on here. So the AT over time has kind of served as a nexus for additional conservation. And in some ways, if you have you're pursuing a land conservation project and you abut the Appalachian Trail, that almost always brings in additional support. It's just the nature of, the internationally renowned AT as part of your project. People get excited about conserving more land around the AT. So this is just a depiction of what that looks like relatively locally. And if we were to scan further down the AT, you would see the same pattern. In the ensuing 30 or 40 years since the federal acquisition, through almost every possible means, we've concerned a whole bunch of other land too. Okay, now let's go back to
Press on that icon at the bottom.
oh, there it is. Thank you. General support. So, yeah, I'll just give it. Oh, there we go. Great. Okay. So, to narrow the lens in a little bit even further, what it looks like locally, Adair just provided this map earlier this week with our partners from the Hanover Conservancy. So, this is, would you like to speak just a minute to this map, Adair? Yeah.
Just quickly, that the AT has provided a wonderful backbone, an ecological backbone, as well as, amassing unfragmented habitat, plus the trail benefits. So the farthest west one in orange, you see, the trail actually dips onto our Greensboro Ridge natural area. And then we held through the Hudson Farm, the Big Block of Green, and these others. The ones in yellow are underway right now.
Very good. Yeah, and we were able to look at how many folks were on the hike this afternoon. Good number here. Yeah, so we got to see some of that recent work by the Conservancy. So why does this matter? Why is this important? We mentioned this longest continuous conservation corridor. Well, without really having to embellish too much, as many of you know, the eastern United States is a heavily populated, heavily developed area of the country. And what we're looking at over time is the value that this land base provides from habitat connectivity, of protection of rare habitats, biodiversity protection, and increased recreational opportunities. The Nature Conservancy a few years ago put out this map showing what they call basically migration flow due to changing conditions. Certain species are going to either move north in latitude or up in elevation. So look at the AT, right? Like it's all just funneling, really right along the top of the Appalachians, more than anywhere else in the country. It's like singly important conservation corridor with recreation in the heart of it. So it's really quite a fascinating nexus. So a little bit about where we are today. So that's a lot of what our prior accomplishments were about, along with designing and constructing a sustainable trail, overnight sites, building up a volunteer base, working with land managing partners. These are all kind of the core work of the Conservancy. This is a little bit about some of our numbers, how we're structured these days. You can just take a quick look at that. And then where we work. So we're about 370,000 acres within the actual corridor itself on the protected land base we mentioned. Many other tens of and hundreds of thousand acres conserved by other organizations. 8 national forests, 6 national parks, 14 states, over 60 state parks and forests, 88 counties, 169 townships. Some really impressive numbers there to make it all come together. A little bit about who we reach. So we're going to have some new numbers here soon through some more maybe accurate calculations, but we estimate between 3 and 4 million trail visitors per year. We've got the attractions to our website and social media, etc. But one of the gaps where we really want to focus on closing, and Genevieve is our director of membership here, is this gap between the number of trail visitors and the actual number of members of the Conservancy. That's pretty much an imbalanced number right there. While many folks are coming to us for information, we're trying to transfer them over and provide some support. Most of these we just mentioned, various partners along the trail. Didn't mention the other slide, the Appalachian Trail communities, of which Hanover is one of, a designated, actually one of the earlier ones. We did the event right here, probably more than 12 years ago. And across the river, Norwich is also an Appalachian Trail community. Anybody here from Norwich this evening? Okay, a few folks, right? So how do we make it all work? So we rely on what we call the Appalachian Trail Cooperative Management System. And at its basic, it's a cooperation between our organization, the local land manager, and the local trail maintaining club. This, I would expand this and really add a fourth layer, which is the land conservation piece, the town land trust, equally represented in this diagram. But for day-to-day management of the trail itself, this is how it gets done. And the value of this system is the combining of knowledge and resources come together. So the trail clubs provide the local knowledge, they bring resources to get the work done. The federal agencies in some cases provide funding or National Environmental Policy Act requirements, et cetera. And then our organization brings in technical expertise, some financial resources, and again, this keeping the trail to a more or less accepted standard from one way to the other, from one end to the other. So what we'd like to do here is have some of the staff here from the ATC and volunteers share some of our messaging with you all, so you're not just listening to me. And Caitlin, if you just say hello and your name and your title and tell us a little about this slide.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Caitlin Miller. I'm ATC's Information Services Manager. I don't work in IT. I get a lot of LinkedIn ads about that because of my title, but I get the fun job of being kind of the first person that you talk to if you call our general lines, contact us through our website, email us. I get to help folks access all of the amazing things that the Appalachian Trail is and gives people. So I really relish that. And I feel really excited to be part of ATCM its 100th year. Like Hawk said, it's not, it doesn't happen every day that a nonprofit gets to turn 100. So I think that this is a really special moment to kind of take stock and celebrate all that we've done. And as this slide says, also kind of look forward to what's the next 100 years going to look like for the ATC and the Appalachian Trail, what new threats are there that we need to address in that cooperative management system with all of our wonderful partners, and how else can we, I guess, shout from the rooftops all the amazing benefits that the trail and its connected corridor have. And if folks are interested, a lot of times we had our birthday. A lot of folks were like, I thought the trail was, turned 100 a few years ago. And like Hawk said, the idea of the trail and its kind of birthday we think of as 1921. So if you're curious about that and want to dig into more of what Hawk said on the back table, we do have trail years that we publish during the birthday of the trail itself. So anyone has any more questions throughout the evening, let me know. Back to you, Hawk.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. So part of this at the presentation here is a little bit of an inflection point. We look about kind of where we came from, where we are in this moment, but importantly, where we're going. And the things we've learned over the years about managing, protecting the AT, and what we identify in the relative near term as being priorities. So a constructive way to do that in an organized way is through a strategic plan. So we've developed these three themes around the plan, which is protect, experience, belong. And we have some folks here who are going to tell us a little bit about each of these. So I'll introduce Dan Ryan in the back here. He's our Vice President of Conservation and Government Relations. And, tell us a little bit about protect.
Good evening, everybody. Real pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'm representing the southern terminus of the AT. I'm from Georgia, up getting to know your backyard a little bit over the next couple of days, and it's already a full day on the trail, so it's been a great experience so far. So as Hawk mentioned, my title is Vice President of Conservation and Government Relations, and a lot of that work has to do with the continued protection of the realm that the Appalachian Trail provides. It's a real famous quote from Mackay that the Appalachian Trail experience is a realm and not just a footpath. And I think even before I heard that quote, and having hiked on the AT for my entire life, you just know that something's unique about it when you're on it. And that's when I read that quote from Mackay, I was like, well, he figured it out 100 years ago. So to see it in the words really solidified the passion that I bring to this job of continuing to protect that realm, whether it's that final 1% of the trail itself that's unprotected, or even the viewscapes in which we all view the neighboring landscapes as we walk on the trail itself. So That's what the protect category refers to in our strategic plan. And I think we'll speak a little bit more about that in a second. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, very good, Dan. Thank you. We'll have a little bit more on that in just a minute here, but that's a great introduction. So from protect, we go to experience, and Alana is going to tell us about experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Alana Gold. Nice to see some of you again. I am what am I? I'm a program support manager for Appalachian Trail Conservancy. I basically help projects get out the door in terms of paperwork, funding, tech support, just a lot of the even behind the scenes to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed so everyone's projects can happen smoothly, which includes a lot of the work that goes into the experience portion of our strategic plan, which is to maintain the trail and its infrastructure to ensure millions of annual visitors enjoy a world-class experience and see conservation in action. So, think about the repairs to the shelters, the repairs to the bridges, the footpath you walk on, the campsites you sleep at, the signs you read. Signs, maybe people remember that someone hung it, someone painted it, but stepstones, not everyone realizes, someone put it there. So we want to, maintain the trail, but also help people understand all that goes into that work. So thank you to everyone here who I know put stepstones in themselves regularly. So pass it.
Thank you, Alana. So that we've tried with a strategic plan. For those who've done this, we're equally committed to all three of these, and the third one around belong is really about the people side of it and expanding our community. So Lila, here's a ATC volunteer to tell you a little bit about belong and herself. Yep.
So I'm Lila Metheny. I'm Hawk's daughter. So it was really, really cool to be here tonight and see all of you. I myself have participated in many little day section hikes of the Appalachian Trail and spent a lot of my childhood just playing in the woods around our house, which is super close to the Appalachian Trail itself. So I won't claim to be an expert, but I do really love the AT and all that it offers. And this third strategic pillar, the plan here on the board is belonging. The Appalachian Trail is a resource that is really available to anyone who's interested in spending time on it or with it. And the Appalachian Trail Conservancy really seeks to cultivate this engaged and expanding community that supports volunteers and advocates for the ATC and our mission. There are so many ways to get involved with working with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy for people of all ages and skill sets. And I hope to do that myself in the near future.
Thank you, Riley. Very good. Okay, so we're going to look at each of these just in sort of practical application of these goals and these objectives. So what does that look like? And we'll have Dan just elaborate a little bit more on some of the specifics around protect.
Believe it or not, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy is also a land trust, much like the Hanover Conservancy or other land trusts you might be aware of. But we're a small shop in 14 states. So how do you do that effectively? How do you continue to protect land under that auspices of a land trust? And essentially, it's through amplifying our efforts through our partners. And one of the things that we did, and Hawk pointed out about 10 years ago, was establish the Appalachian Trail Landscape Partnership, which brings together entities, cities, nonprofits, agencies across the 14 states to really think holistically about how we leverage our resources and amplify our efforts through those states. So in terms of protect, we try to do some of the land protection work, but oftentimes we try also to influence and amplify the efforts of our partners. So that cooperative management slide that Hawk showed, without one leg of the stool, it's all going to collapse. Pretty classic there. So Hawk also spoke earlier to the second point about the incredible connectivity that the AT provides as a recreational resource, much less an ecological resource. And with changing climate and the migration patterns that we're seeing, how incredible that this essentially a recreational asset originally could serve in that function in such a crowded eastern seaboard that we live in. And yeah, I guess I'd speak to the final point there. we really need to galvanize as many entities and organizations that are interested in this effort as we can. And through that, we hosted the AT Communities Program, which as of this point, we have 56 designated AT communities that I think the world is our oyster and what we can do with that in terms of communicating and collaborating with local municipalities to keep that rural economic engine driving. And as these communities are resources to the hikers themselves, and the communities see the AT and all of everything that we've talked about the AT so far as beneficial to their own livelihood and community. So we're really looking at this from so many different angles and what you can do with a small organization across such a huge landscape. Thanks, Hawk.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Dan. Okay, so just a little bit more here on experience, and with Alana, you were going to maybe elaborate a little bit here. Yeah.
Sure. So to get more into the experience element, we are really looking to prepare the trail itself for the next century of increased use. So this includes upgrading infrastructure to continue that world-class experience for visitors of all backgrounds. So, think about the effort to, replace privies with ABA accessible privies that are beneficial to all types of trail users, not just folks that the ABA was initially designed to benefit. Or think about putting signs on maps on signs, not just mileages that not everybody knows how to interpret it. We also want to expand on the ground educational programs that impart responsible use and teach users about the rich cultural histories of the region. So this could be through the Ridge Runners that some of y'all might have met on the trail. So expanding that program to broaden the impact, expanding the types of things that Ridge Runners are teaching people about, like the original inhabitants of the areas that the trail walks through, or the conservation challenges, not just, oh, this is where you set your tent up. Did you have a question?
Could you briefly define what the the Ridge Runners are?
Of course. Sorry. So Ridge Runners are individuals who walk up and down certain lengths of the trail, and they have a number of responsibilities. A lot of it is they just talk to everyone they meet on the trail and give them information about the trail conditions, the weather, what's coming up ahead, what they've experienced so far. Is there a campsite coming up that has had some bears in the area, and do people need to be more safe about their camping habits? But they also, in addition to just talking to people about trail conditions, they often are the ones cleaning the outhouses, cleaning the shelters, picking up trash. In some regions, the Ridge Runners actually cut back branches from the trail or clear fallen trees. So Ridge Runners can be can have a number of different responsibilities, but no matter what, they're out there on the trail. They're often the only staff person that a hiker sees, whether it's a Ridge Runner in Maine or a Ridge Runner in Georgia. That could be the only person in uniform a hiker sees. So they're really the face of education on the trail.
What percentage of trail mileage do the Ridge Runners cover? Every mile, every inch of the
No,
trail?
it's not every mile right now. It's a pretty small percent, and it's different from state to state. So, for example, in New Hampshire, the Appalachian Mountain Club has Ridge Runners fairly regularly throughout the White Mountains, and those could be volunteers. Some of them are volunteers. Some are staff. Some stay near one campsite and spend their days kind of walking near the campsite to talk to people. Some stay on Mount Washington all day and talk to whoever they see up there. Whereas other parts of the trail, like in New York or Connecticut, there might be one Ridge Runner in 100 miles, and you might never see them because there's just one person out there. And a Ridge Runner usually is responsible for 30 miles of trail, and they just kind of walk back and forth. Or there's so many Ridge Runners out there. It's my favorite program. I could talk about it all night, so I'll end it there. But feel free to come ask me questions later. But right, they're just a special way for us to teach people about the trail. And another special way is through gateways to the AT, such as visitor centers in towns or events like this that kind of channel people into learning more. So that's another element of the experience that we're hoping to develop over the next couple hundred years. Couple hundred years.
No, we got 100 behind us. We may as well think big. Good question on the ridge runner. So the sort of determination of which section would have a ridge runner is this balance between our management objectives of protecting the resource and providing a quality recreational experience. Like if you're in recreation management, we have that sort of dual mandate all the time. And the ridge runners are a very direct and proven way to do that through like leave no trace education. So they're often stationed at areas that are sensitive to recreational impacts or just have really high volume of visitors. Like McAfee Knob down region, right? We have a Summit Steward program on Franconia Ridge. So how many folks like, in terms of like there's, low, moderate, high, popular, like ultra popular. Franconia Ridge right now is incredibly popular. So we have this summer on a particular Saturday, 1,200 people come out love it. And that's all on alpine, right? So it's a sensitive resource where everybody's generally well-intentioned, but they may not realize when they step off the trail that they're causing impact to these rare, threatened, endangered species. So having a ridge runner equivalent type position can help with that on-site education more than someone would get with just reading about it, because they can physically see the resource and the impacts they're having and how to mitigate that. So it's a proven program and popular with the public. Okay, so just a little bit more on Belong, and this is just how we right now are tactically and strategically implementing our goals around being a more welcoming and inclusive community. And Lila's going to walk us through these a bit.
All right, so more on the sense of belonging is the ATC works to expand the Emerging Leaders Summit and create even more opportunities to introduce more diverse groups to the trail and involve them in its protection. So like up and coming trail maintainers. Establishing and co-coordinating a very robust youth corps program that introduces teens such as myself and young adults to practical skills, employment opportunities, and this lifelong love of the outdoors that can be cultivated in future years. And they also work to expand the regional partnerships that can contribute to this greater diversity of trail visitors by developing opportunities for both recreation and maintenance of the trail. So just out enjoying it for the day and also getting to cultivate it yourself with hands-on experience and to inspire future generations.
Good. Thank you, Lila. This is an exciting opportunity for us at ATC for a couple reasons. The demographics are changing and we need to be an adaptive organization over time. And also, like with the Emerging Leaders Summit, that's about 10 days from now. Yeah, next weekend after this one, Caitlin and I are going down to New Jersey. And what it is folks that have been, maybe they've done a seasonal job or volunteered in conservation, but they're really looking for the next step to make this their career. So we try and provide some guidance on how to do that, connect them with people that, are in a similar situation as them, and really try and give them new skills to advance in their careers. And it's very popular. We're at 40 and we had over 100 apply, right? So it's something we want to continue to grow and do more of, moving around regionally and often times per year. Okay, so those are some pretty important goals, and why ATC? Why would our organization take on all this work? And we're going to have Genevieve perhaps elaborate on why we think we're well positioned to do this.
Hello, everyone. I'm Genevieve Andrus. I am the membership director at the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. And why ATC? I think pretty much everything in this presentation so far has answered this question, but to elaborate on a little bit more, the ATC really has extensive knowledge in the areas that matter most to the preservation and growth of the trail. So conservation, stewardship, And it really having those resources, thinking about the whole trail, helps us develop appropriate strategies for its protection and amid urban development, invasive species, and increased use. And also, really, again, going back to the three-legged stool that Hawk was talking about earlier, the cooperative management system, it's that network of local groups, local volunteers, the trail maintaining clubs, and that whole network that the ATC is really the convener of, and to leverage that and also work with government entities to leverage all of those resources locally and trail-wide to protect and manage the AT. And then also, I mean, we're celebrating 100 years. We've been protecting the trail for 100 years, so we bring that credibility to the work of protecting and managing the AT. So it really allows us to maintain the integrity of the trail, work with those partners to develop and implement strategies, and then work with a diverse group of people who can benefit and contribute to the trail and its future.
Good, thank you, Genevieve. And some of this is by way of what we've accomplished so far, and in some ways using as an analogy. So Dan mentioned with the Landscape Partnership Program, we can look at the success of the cooperative management program with our system with trail clubs and kind of replicating that in some ways with this combining resources, like the power of partnership is really what it's about. No one organization, whether it's trail stewardship or land conservation or engaging young folks, necessarily has all the resources or knowledge to do that. So we're very excited about expanding our network into those other program areas. The other thing about, like with volunteer opportunities, traditionally it's thought, well, you have to maintain trail, like that's how you get involved. But we've expanded considerably. We have science and stewardship work, we have a visual resource inventory program that folks can get involved with. There's a boundary monitoring program. There's many ways to get involved. If digging in the dirt's not your thing, we have other opportunities for you. Okay, now, any luck, we're going to be able to show here. Let's see, I guess I have to go out of this right now. Yeah. It's always a good one for me. Yeah, okay. And then minimize this maybe? Yeah. We have a little over 2-minute video to kind of wrap up the presentation with, and then a few minutes for question and answer. So, mentioned earlier, we have a kind of a new tagline this year called "Keep the Trail Alive." This is our kind of promotional video for that concept.
This isn't just a trail. This is our story. The one we write when our boots hit the ground. The one we write when we become part of something bigger than ourselves. The one we write when we feel most connected to the land beneath our feet and the people around our campsite. This isn't just a trail. This is our living hope. Our hope for saving thousands of vulnerable species. Our hope for renewing endangered habitats. Our hope for reducing our footprint on nature's landscape. To diminish harmful development and lessen the effects of climate change. This isn't just a trail. This is our call to protect one of the most critical landscapes on our planet. Our call to ensure everyone can step on the path so they may walk away transformed. Our call to keep the Appalachian Trail a let's go instead of a remember when, so that together we may keep it alive. Join the call, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Keep the trail alive.
Probably seen that video 20 times and I still get kind of soft inside. It's really nicely done. We worked with a marketing group to help put that together in celebration of our centennial. And let me just see if I can get back to this. Okay. All right. Watch your eyes, folks. We have, if you want to know any more about some of the things we're doing, we've got information on all these different programs. I thought down to this one here, so we invite all of you to help keep the trail alive in whatever way you can. There's a variety of ways to support. There's volunteerism, there's financial support, there's advocacy, there's spreading the word about the work that the Conservancy does. You can check out this website, keepthetrailalive.org, which goes into some more information that we shared this evening. And we thank everybody for coming out this evening and being supporters of the Conservancy. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Fast with that.
Yeah, sure.
I think probably a lot of people might wonder, in the last 9 months, have you lost federal funding? Oh, wait, first of all, I want to say, I love that it was a young woman's voice on the video. That was great.
Good.
And whether the federal government has asked you to give up DEI initiatives.
Yeah, okay, so let's,
Light question to start.
no, they're important questions and they are timely, particularly during a government shutdown right now, right? So, so at the beginning of the year, there was quite a bit of uncertainty and even anxiety about, which one thing we didn't really speak to too much. We mentioned our annual operating budget around $15 million. So depending on a given year, anywhere from 25 to a third or so percent of our funding is from primarily the National Park Service, also the Forest Service, through annual agreements to do certain projects. And, was that going to be, rescinded or anything like that? So when we get funding for a project, we receive it in a given year, and typically we'll fund projects starting the next year. So most of the work that we were doing in 2025 was authorized funding in previous years. We did get all of our agreements for FY25 this year in July. They were late. There was extra levels of review and all. And Lana can give you all the details if you're interested. But they did all come in. So we didn't lose any money this year. So that's the positive thing to report. Going forward, so part of the reason that there's a federal shutdown, government shutdown, is there's not a FY26 budget, right? Congress couldn't agree on that. All this year we worked under a continuing resolution. And maybe that's what will happen again. I can't say, no one really knows. But anyway, so going forward, we are monitoring closely. We have a number of funding proposals in the queue for FY26. And over time, we'll determine if those are funded or not. But we got through this year okay. On the DEI question, so for those, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, and that has become kind of politically polarized. We had to change some of our wording. We're not abandoning that goal. That's remains an integral part of our mission, very much about our belong work. But how we express it, how we communicate it, we had to adjust some wording.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I think you already answered the question about what keeps you awake at night. My next
That's
question,
one of them, but yeah.
my next question would be, can you talk a little bit about usage numbers, like not only through hikers, but the other, because there's like thousands of through hikers, right?
Yeah. So,
but there's got to be many more.
right. Yeah, there is. And I'll touch on this. And Caitlin is probably our in-room authority on this particular topic. So there are a variety of types of visitors on the Appalachian Trail. You mentioned long distance hikers, through hikers. Several of us in the room are through hikers. It's probably the highest profile. Sometimes when I'm traveling and I'll be sitting on the airplane doing some work, or I'll have my logo shirt on, or somebody about talking about the AT, and they're like, "Yeah, I knew somebody, who did the trail and all that." And they say they hope to have the time, some like that. There's almost like a perception in some cases, not around here. There's a lot of local knowledge, but like you can only get on the trail in Georgia and get off in Maine. That's it, it's only for long distance hikes. That's very much not the case, because if you look at the starts, 3,000 a year.
Yeah, so
About-
annually we have around 3,000, 3 to 4,000. 2022 was quite a
Spike. Yeah.
2022 is definitely a spike, which is pretty common if you look at through hiker numbers over time. There's always sort of a leveling off and then a cultural moment, whether it's walk in the woods, whether it's COVID where there was a dip and then sort of a spike. So 3 to 4,000 people begin, and nowadays around 1,000 of those report completions to us. So we're up to about a third of people starting through hikes completing those.
So think about that. So let's say it's 3 to 4,000 on a given year. Remember that number, 3 to 4 million visitors, right? So we're talking like 0.1%, right? So who's everybody else, right? So it's a lot of you in the room here. It's the local day hike type use. It's section hikes, it's backpacks, it's groups. So the Appalachian Trail is pretty popular with like summer camps. Dartmouth's freshman orientation program, right? Every year sends students out. Bird watchers, dog walkers, everybody that has access. So we're trying to get better demographic data to partly answer your question here, because we have really good numbers for long distance hikers, because they'll register to hike at the beginning of the hike. If they're going north or south, we have kind of outtake numbers that we can get, but we're trying to get a better understanding of that, like percentage wise by type of hiker. But it's really everybody that's on the AT, that's knowingly on the AT. Some people are on the Appalachian Trail and may not realize they're on the AT. Yeah. Does that help answer your question? Yeah.
And if I could make a plug real quick,
Yeah.
Hawk, one really successful platform that was implemented through our visitor use management program is called atcamp.org. It's a voluntary hiker registration platform. So it's not required, but we have really great registration rates among through hikers. And it's a way not only for us to gather more data about trail users, but it's also a way that we can send out educational messaging. You can sign up to receive urgent trail alerts either by text or email. And we welcome any overnight camper on the trail, through hiker, section hiker, overnighter, groups definitely. So again, atcamp.org, you can find it on our website, and it's a great one way to help keep the trail alive is by registering your hikes.
Yeah. Thank you, Caitlin. But just an add-on to your question is, we do see shifts in patterns over time. And I'd say right now that long distance hiking is, kind of flat, really, like for that spike in 22 that Caitlin mentioned. But the rise in day use, in short-term visits continues to climb, really. Yes.
May I make a quick
And
comment
behind
for
you.
somebody behind me?
No, that's right. Go ahead. We'll get you after. Yeah.
Okay, my name is Obi-Wan. I've had a number of other different names, and I'm a Visher. Does anyone know what a Visher is? A long ass section hiker, meaning I go long distances, 500 miles, that kind of stuff. So anyway, but I've had a number of different names, and I'm here in Hanover in answer to 2 or 3 things. I've had about 150 phone calls this summer from AT hikers in Hanover. That's not all of them by any means, but there's a group of people in Hanover and Norwich and West Hartford who, when I get a phone call, I'll call them, and tomorrow I will say, yep, I can pick you up at the West Hartford library and get you to Dan and Witt's. Or yes, artists will say, yes, you can sleep in my house. How many people in your group? Judy, the same sort of thing. So we are Appalachian Trail angels here in town. And although I don't know where the designated is a gateway city, but I would put in a pitch, if you're developing more gateway cities, we would happy to join in with it. I mean, it's basically, if anybody wants to become a trail angel, you don't have to go to heaven. You just need to contact me, and I'll give you a list of our current trail angels just to give you an idea about what it's about. And a free postcard that says it was 431 miles to Katahdin in Maine when the plaque was put in the street at the Hanover Inn. There's a new boulder going in at the Parks and Recreation Building, and I forget how many miles we said it is now, but they've stretched it. They keep making the Appalachian Trail a little longer. Is that by moving the land or by measuring it different, whatever? But anyway, if anybody's interested, please pick up a postcard or here and talk to me, and I'm happy. We're eager to have more trail angels. Thank you.
One thing we didn't mention there is, the Appalachian Trail at this point is, it's internationally renowned. People from all over the world know of the AT, even if they've never been on it or near it. At the same time, those that have, one thing about becoming a trail angel or even a volunteer is you do meet people from all over the world, but possibly not even leaving your hometown. It's almost like the world comes to us in some way. So amazing stories. It's really rich in the community aspect of who's out there on the trail. Yes, please. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. You had a question.
Yeah,
We have a couple more here.
yeah.
Yes.
The numbers, your disparity between people that visited the trail versus members of the ATC,
Yeah.
that's pretty wide.
Right.
So my question is twofold. What do you see as your biggest challenge in terms of, trying to address that? And what potentially can we do as individuals to help those challenges to, get those numbers a little closer together?
That's an awesome question. I appreciate that. And Genevieve, maybe you come help me on this. I'll just get it started. I think part of it is, like this event this evening, hoping to learn more about what we do, right? We kind of profile raising. For a long time, we were sort of behind the scenes. We were just kind of keeping everything moving in the same direction. And part of this celebration is, our ultimate goal, I think Genevieve would agree, is almost like a synonymous association between the Appalachian Trail and the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. If you think of one, you think of the other. But I think part of it is for folks to realize who we are, what we do, and how they can be involved. You maybe want to expand on that, maybe. Sure. Okay.
So I think what Hawk was saying about maybe a lot of people know the Appalachian Trail, but they don't know us and our role in protecting and maintaining the Appalachian Trail. So how can you get involved? First, I want to thank the few of you that talked to me and said you're already members. Thank you. That is a great way to support our mission and to get involved. And if you're not a member, you can join as a member. So what that means is you're financially supporting our mission, but you're also involved in our community. You get our updates, you get our magazine if you want to check it out at the back. We put that out 3 times a year, and you're really connected to the full story of the Appalachian Trail, all 2,200 miles of it. And I know many of you are involved in the local trail work, and that is amazing and incredible. And this is just another way to support the trail and get involved in the community. And I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants to join as a member today, if you are not already. And thank you to all of you.
Let me ask you one more question relative to that. I mean, if I was going to try to get somebody, acknowledged along the line you just said, what would be the one resource that you could recommend that you guys have for us to point them to? KeepTheTrailAlive.org. What would you say, to get somebody to start to see, like that video that you presented for Keep the Trail Alive, which is pretty awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Would you say that's the place to say, hey, go and see what you can about things and what both the ATC and the Appalachian Trail are about?
Visit our website, AppalachianTrail.org. We have a lot of hiker resources on there. There's a donate button right at the top, so you can click on that. But I really think the resources, and then we have a weekly email newsletter, Trailway News, that you can sign up for on our website. And I think that's for someone who's interested in learning more. That is a great way to know what we're up to. It comes out every week. It's a fantastic newsletter. I subscribed to it long before I worked here. So I definitely, I'd say our website, the newsletter, and KeepTheTrailAlive.org too. The video is on there. So, and on our YouTube. And you can follow us on social media. So there's a lot of different avenues to get connected to our work.
Great. Thank you.
Sure thing. Yeah. Appreciate the question. Okay. All right. A little bit of a loop here. We'll start right here and work our way down. Thank you.
Okay. You had one quick
picture that looked like flooding and storm damage and all that. And I wondered if you could give an update on where things are. Was it Helene?
South with Helene. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate the question. So there was a comment over here about what keeps us awake at night. And, storms of that magnitude, like when we look ahead in the projection of the Appalachian Trail in 10, 20, 50, 100 years, that's going to be the number one issue with, these catastrophic events. So Hurricane Helene, just over a year ago, September 27th, 6th or 7th, 2024, hit the South, but hit the Appalachian Trail hard. And initially, the impact was across about 800 miles. Wow. There were 400 miles that were closed for a period of time. Cable did an outstanding job with daily updates, trying to figure out, what the impacts were and informing really everybody in the trail community as we get information in. So, in some cases, the tree mortality, so the number of trees that went down in the stand, was 90%. So 90% of the trees went down. And what happened, this is the South, so they were all still leafed out when the hurricane hit. And these are hardwood, a lot of it. Red oak, 24-inch, 30-inch red oak. And rather than the limbs breaking or the crown breaking half off, they just uprooted, right? So you have these massive uplifts of root structures. In some cases, took the treadway right with it. There was one, I went down a couple of times. There was one case where I came to one of these root masses, this huge wall in the treadway. And I looked at the top of the root mass, more than 20 feet in the air. I could see the AT treadway like that, lifted right up. Yeah, so incredible amount of complex blowdown situations, flooding, washouts, flooded out communities, everything. Folks that are in Vermont for Irene, right? Remember that, right?
Yep.
So take that to that scale, like it was that little. So a big hit. Remarkably, by the start of this hiking season, we had just 5 miles still closed.
Wow.
Passing. There's still a lot of work to do, but we basically got the blowdowns cleared and repaired the most severe impacts in the treadway itself, all through the cooperative management system. It wouldn't happen. Everybody had to come together on this, all hands. We just received some funding for a 5-year restoration effort for the impacts from Helene, and that'll be a lot of the work is that stabilization and thinking sustainably. Like in some cases, the trail was in a vulnerable location, so we're thinking like, okay, if something like that hits again, is this really the best alignment? Should we move the treadway somewhere where it would be less chance of it being flooded, or perhaps even in more protected areas related to blowdowns? So partial success. The trail is mostly passable now, but still quite a bit of recovery to do. Yeah, and we still have updates right on the website, so you can get. Thanks for the question. Yes.
So this is a follow-on question to the Trail Angels presentation. Thank you for that. So I'm part of the downtown Hanover business community, and we've adopted a slogan where the Appalachian Trail meets the Ivy League. Because the Appalachian Trail,
The only place on the trail.
yeah. And the trail, as we know, it comes right down Main Street.
Right.
And so in collaboration with the town of Hanover, we are building a park. We're naming it Ledyard Park, between Ledyard Bank and what used to be Citizens Bank, in that pocket of land there. And there's gonna be a feature, something about the Appalachian Trail, because it's literally right where that park is.
Awesome.
So the question is what can we, as call it a host community, Hanover, downtown Hanover, what are we doing right to support the Appalachian Trail and hikers, and what can we do better?
Hey, great question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So when the designation for Hanover was first being pursued, that was part of the sentiment. Hanover, maybe had maybe a reputation because there wasn't really a lot of hiker services necessarily in town. It wasn't an affordable place to stay, this kind of stuff. So folks got together and said, let's do something about this. So we looked at the requirements of the community program. 2012 or so, 13, somewhere in there, when we did the community designation here. The Black Center, has been very open, welcoming to hikers. We the committee created a little guide, 2-handle for long distance hikers, et cetera. So that, reputation certainly improved. Going forward, to your point, I like this idea of the park. That sounds like a respite for folks in town, that want to stay. I think being the Trail Angel Network is huge. I think that didn't exist before the community designation very much, and it's been very effective. Folks can call in and they generally find a place every night, right? Somebody's willing to put folks up. So I'd say continue doing the good things that you're doing. Caitlin, Alana, other ideas? Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say I'll give you my card so that we can keep up the thread of conversation too. But
Yeah.
Caitlin,
Yeah, thinking about the main trip planning questions we get at ATC from hikers, a lot of section hikers, transportation. So Trail Angel shuttling is a huge need for through hikers. But again, I talk to a lot of section hikers who are trying to piece together parts of the trail, or folks who are out for an overnight or weekend, and then parking, especially long-term parking. That's a huge need along the trail, where folks can leave their car safely and then get a shuttle or ride back to it. Honestly, those are my biggest questions, is helping folks find parking and how to get around.
The problem I have over
But
there.
let's-
Yeah.
Not so much for hikers, but yeah,
We're working on that.
yeah.
Trust
But yeah, let's do some share some contact with it, because you might be able to further some of your ideas. Yes, please.
A couple of years ago, I saw a very down and out dog tied outside the Hanover post office and with a big knapsack. I knew the hiker was inside picking up and the dog, turns out, I went in and talked to the hiker and said, "Your dog doesn't look well. I'll take you to the vet." And the dog had a broken tail that she didn't know about. And I'm wondering if you have any veterinarian messages to give the hikers, because a lot of people are going with their dogs.
That's a great question. Folks love to take their dogs on the trail. On our staff hikes, often Hawk's 2 dogs come with us, which is super fun. We have a page on our website with suggestions about hiking with your dog, tips. It was written by a veterinarian. We also host an event called the Flip Flop Kickoff each year in Harper's Ferry. One of our pushes to help alleviate some of the impacts from overcrowding on the trail in Georgia each spring from the thousands of hikers that sit out is encouraging alternative hikes on the trail. So instead of starting at one end and hiking to the other, we encourage flip-floppers. So folks start either at one end and get up to a point and then flip up, or they start in the middle, often Harper's Ferry, hike to one end, flip back, and then continue on their way. But we have a hiking with your dog workshop there every year. So I'm always happy to connect folks with more resources about safe hiking with your dog. Because you're right, it really kind of becomes their hike, right? They can't communicate and tell you when they're hurt. So you really have to learn the proper way to take care of them and kind of pick up on their cues that maybe something's not right.
Thank you very much.